It's time to get your news on. We are VK1WIA.
This is the Ham Radio News for week commencing May 5, 2024. And this week, a shortened version of the 30-minute news. Maybe that solar eclipse shortened our VK time zones as well as in the US of A, as we heard last week. I'm Editor Graham, VK4BB, RS Contact. As many of we newsreaders have been busy on the road or at airports, planning on being in Bundaberg for the AGM today, Sunday, much has been pre-recorded. Planned and still go for contact is the Wireless Institute of Australia, Bundaberg High School Amateur Radio Club contact, but via Telebridge out of VK6MJ. The ISS call sign is presently scheduled to be NA1SS, the scheduled crew member Mike Barrett, KD5MIJ. As always, if there is an EVA or docking or an undocking, the RS radios are turned off as part of the safety protocol.
Across Australia from VK1WIA, you're tuned to the WIA National News Service. In South Australia, this broadcast can be heard on VK5RAD 147 MHz at 9 a.m. local time. I'm Shirley, VK5YL.
We are VK1WIA. Now, international news with VK2LAW Jason.
Hello, and as usual, the international news is with thanks to ARRL, DX World, EHAM, Hackaday, IARU, ICQ Podcast, Newsline, NZART, RAC, RadioWorld.com, RSGB, and the worldwide sources of the WIA. MFJ Enterprises Incorporated founder Martin F. Dew, Kilo 5 Foxtrot Lima uniform, announced that as of May 17, the company will cease on-site production at their Mississippi facility. Ameritron, Highgain, Cushcraft, Mirage and Vectronics brand products will be affected by the shutdown. In a letter posted to social media, Martin said he's looking forward to retiring. I turned 80 this year. I'd never really considered retirement, but life is so short and my time with my family is so precious. MFJ Enterprises was formed in 1972 after Martin built a CW filter kit that sold for less than $10. Since 1990, the company has acquired several other legacy brands within the amateur radio market. The company will remain open to sell existing inventory because they've a lot of stock on hand. They'll also continue to offer repair services for the foreseeable future. Martin also expressed gratitude to the many long-time employees of MFJ, some of whom have been with the company for 40 years. He also thanked MFJ dealers and radio amateurs for their patronage over the decades. Education. Studying for your exam? Well, how would you go with these UK questions? The Radio Society of Great Britain has published a new set of mock trial papers covering each of the UK amateur radio licence exams, from foundation through to direct to full. These papers are in addition to those already available. They're each marked as Mock Exam Paper 3, and you can find them on the RSGB website. When amateur radio enthusiasts gathered at the Marconi Museum on the Lizard Peninsula to mark the 150th anniversary of the birth of Guglielmo Marconi, they were not only remembering the inventor of radio, but also Nobel Prize for Physics winner. The Lizard is where Marconi did a lot of his work. In 1901, he achieved a significant milestone, the first ever transatlantic communication from Poldhu to Newfoundland in Canada. This achievement rightly received much accolade, with the station being visited by the future King and Queen in 1903. Marconi later used Poldhu for his shortwave experiments, from which he developed the beam wireless service for the British General Post Office. The station at Poldhu operated until 1933, and the site was later, in 2001, now known to be as the Marconi Centre. opened by the National Trust and Marconi plc to mark the centenary of his transatlantic signal. James Wolford from Poldhu Amateur Radio Club said he hoped the event would have brought a bit of perspective to the younger generation. He said, "We're always trying to bring to, especially the younger generation, the message about what Marconi has brought to the world." He was the first man who was talking about mobile phones back in the 1920s, and we take a lot of things for granted now which link back to Guglielmo. He was a very important character in history who's probably touched the lives of more of us and our technology than anyone else. Still in Newfoundland, we learned David Bowman, Golf 0 Mike Romeo Foxtrot, and Graham Sherville, Golf 3 Victor Zulu Victor, will travel to St John's, Newfoundland, May 15 to 19, 2024 in an attempt to operate QO100 from below the horizon and claim trophies sponsored by AMSAT UK and the British Amateur Television Club for the first QO100 QSOs from North America. AMSAT UK and BATC posed the challenge in 2022. The trophies have so far gone unclaimed, though successful below-the-horizon operation on QO100 has occurred from Indonesia. The future of AM radio is taking centre stage among United States lawmakers. The Energy and Commerce Committee of the United States House of Representatives have begun a hearing on the language needed to fine-tune the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act of 2024. One report says the bill has enough support in the House of Reps for it to be passed by that chamber. You may recall last December, Senate supporters tried to pass a similar bill, but that attempt failed. For VK1 WIA National News, in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
We are VK1 WIA. Now, operational news with VK4 FUQ. Felix.
Hello there. Now, contest-wise 2024. The St George Amateur Radio Society will again be holding the Don Evers Memorial Slow Morse on the weekend after Mother's Day. So that's next Saturday 18 and Sunday 19 May. Full details on the St George Amateur Radio Society's website. IAAHF World Championship the second full weekend of July, that is 13-14. Starts 0 hours UTC Saturday, ends 23:59 hours UTC Sunday. Trans-Tasman Low Band Contest, July 21st, 2024. The Trans-Tasman Contest, always held on the third weekend in July, aims to encourage low band activity between VK and ZL. Only contest bands 160, 80 and 40 metres are allowed with SSB, CW and digital, that is ready or PSK. This contest is another official WIA contest that will count towards the Peter Brown Contest Champion Awards. Yoda Contest 2024. The next session of this year's Yoda Contest will be from 10 hours to 21:59 hours UTC on 21 July on the 5 classic bands using CW and SSB. Everyone can work everyone, not just youth. August 17-18 Remembrance Day Contest. This contest commemorates the Australian amateurs who died during World War II and is designed to encourage friendly participation and help improve the operating skills of participants. Amateurs will endeavour to contact other amateurs in VK call areas, ZL and P29 on all bands except WARC bands. Modes allowed are phone, CW and RTTY as per the era remembered. Again, the 2024 contest is the 17th and 18th August. 44th Alara Contest, and this Alara Contest is always held on the last whole weekend of August. YLs work everyone. OMs work YLs only. All HF bands except 160 metres and WARC bands. Contacts made on Egalink will also be accepted. Now from contest, let's open the DX window to the world. Uganda. Jack NP2R is currently active as 5X3L from the village of Kawabi, which sits right on the equator. He will be joined by Don 7Q6M from Monday 25 May. They will be active until May 10 while preparing some local newcomers for their licence exams. Malawi. Don 7Q6M is QRB until May 13, 2024, and has also been active on 160 metres. QSL via LOTW. Botswana. Active will be A25 SHD from different locations in Botswana between 30 April and 13 May. QSL A25 SHD via home call, which is HB9 SHD. In the World DX, be listening for members of the Zurich City Police Radio Amateur Club throughout the year, operating as HB20SP. The club is marking its 20th anniversary. No Bureau QSLs thanks, but you can use Logbook of the World. And HB20SP runs until December 31. For VK1WIA National News, I'm Felix, VK4FUQ Inningham.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1WIA. Now, Special Interest Group News with Cole, VK3GTV.
Hello, first up it's Worldwide Special Interest Group News, Summits on the Air, Worldwide Flora and Fauna Program, Parks on the Air and other adventure groups. Good news for IOTA and POTA enthusiasts re Jarvis Island. Jarvis is one of the rarest of the IOTA counters, having been off the air for 34 years. Because of the requirements set by the permit of the USFWS, all stations and antennas and power are all set up on Jarvis Island. The local operators must conduct the de-expedition from the MV Magnet, which will still be in the Jarvis Island National Wildlife Refuge just offshore. Both the IOTA and POTA programs have agreed to recognise QSOs made by the local operators, but will not allow QSOs made by some 24 internet remote operators to count. Therefore, QSOs made by AA7JV, HA7RY, N1DG, KO8SCA and KN4EEI will count for the awards. Daily uploads by the N5J team to Clublog will identify the operators. Additionally, at the beginning of each operator shift, the team will endeavour to post on the cluster the call sign of the operator, so chasers have some real-time notice. At this time, all phone operations are expected to be by the @Island team as well, giving that mode 100% IOTA POTA certainty. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Astronomy and Wireless Weather. Undergrads explore space weather during 2024 total eclipse. Reports are still coming in of the fantastic work, much by amateurs, in the study of the eclipse across the North American mainland. While thousands travelled westward and northward from New Jersey through bumper-to-bumper traffic to reach the totality of the total eclipse on April the 8th, NJIT undergraduate physics students Annalise Schmidt, 24, and Joseph Fazzone, 25, will finally be able to relax. For them, the race to the eclipse was over, having finally finished deploying instrumentation in upstate New York to explore the question, how does the eclipse change the space environment near Earth? Because their HF receiver needed to be assembled from scratch as part of their Phys 450 coursework, Schmidt and Fassone took their lead from Ham SCI, that community of ham radio enthusiasts who developed an easy-to-assemble magnetometer and instructions for building a receiver. The receiver gave them a way to measure Doppler shift, or changes in received frequency of radio signals, after it bounces off the ionosphere, that region of the Earth's upper atmosphere, and hits the receiver. With that signal change, they can determine a lot about the bottom side of the ionosphere, explained Schmidt. She added that sunlight affects all of these factors due to the photoionization of the ionosphere, so being able to see a sudden nighttime during the day, because of a total solar eclipse, allows us to see changes in the ionosphere that would usually take place over multiple hours from sunset. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Digital. Turkish University will use AI to monitor space activities. Spacecraft and objects, including satellites passing over, can be tracked using artificial intelligence in a project that will also enable the detection of espionage activities. They aim to commence trials by the end of the year, which will allow for the instantaneous learning of the speed, position and orbit of any space object observable through amateur radio bands passing over the country. Worldwide Special Interest Group's Final Frontier. NASA has announced a coding fix by scientists at its Jet Propulsion Laboratory has restored viable communications with Voyager 1. NASA said it has since received good data from Voyager 1 about the health of its engineering systems, and it's expected to resume its scientific mission through deep space shortly. Robusta 3A with store and forward repeater scheduled for launch. The ham radio messaging system provides a message exchanging service between amateur radio users using Robusta satellite missions as relays. The main purpose of the system is to enable ham radio operators to send and receive messages from anywhere in the world without having a direct, end-to-end connection between them. The messaging system uses store and forward to provide this service. Messages are transported to the relay station on board satellite Robusta 3A by a radio link from one geographical location to another by the satellite orbital movement. A user sends a message to the satellite during a pass, and the message is stored in the satellite's memory. The satellite then moves on its orbit, making the stored message available for other ham radio operators. Users can request messages to the satellite, which in turn will check if there are any stored messages available for that particular operator. Finally, the message is transmitted and it arrives at its destination. A UHF downlink using 9K6 GMSK with AX25 is proposed. Launch is planned on the Ariane 6 maiden flight from French Guiana into a 580-kilometre circular 96-degree orbit. Worldwide Special Interest Group's Military. The National World War I Museum and Memorial in Kansas City, Missouri, will activate WW1 USA from Friday, May 24th until Monday, May 27th, 2024. Amateur operators are invited to participate in this special event and contact stations around the world. QSL with WW1 USA will be available by mail with a self-addressed stamped envelope or other postage provided, or via an eQSL. After the event, information will be provided regarding how to request a commemorative certificate. WW1 USA operation dates often coincide with other events held at this museum and memorial, highlighting lessons from the First Worldwide War. The station helps to raise awareness of the Great War and how it continues to affect the world today. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Radio Amateur Old-Timers with Clive, VK6CSW.
Hello everyone, reminding you that tomorrow is the first Monday of the month, time for the Radio Amateurs Old-Timers Club of Australia's May Bulletin to go to air. This month, once again, we offer an historical broadcast from years past by Alan Doble, VK3AMD, this time from April 2002. The latest news and information will be broadcast next month. Everyone, RAOTC members and non-members alike, is most welcome to listen to the programme and join in the callbacks afterwards. Full details of all transmissions, times, frequencies and modes can be found on the RAOTC website at www.raotc.org.au or just Google RAOTC broadcasts. If none of the transmission times suit you, you can download the audio file at any time from today from the club website. Members and friends of the RAOTC in Perth are reminded that the next lunchtime meeting at the Woodbridge Hotel, East Guildford, is on Tuesday, May the 14th. All are welcome. Details are published on the club website under the subheading Luncheons. 7-3 from Clive, VK6CSW.
Thanks, Clive, and once again, tune in tomorrow for the May RAOTC Bulletin. Enjoy the program, and please join in the callbacks afterwards. Now it's to young Alan, VK2COD, and this week, a look at radio scouting.
Thank you, Cole. Hello everyone, I am Alan, VK2COD, reading this segment for Alec, VK2MV, because my brother is in Bundaberg for our AGM. I will take you to Ireland to talk to you about the big things happening there. Radio Scouting Ireland and Shannon Basin Radio Club have teamed up for Camp Northeast. They will put on radio and STEM related activities at Camp Northeast in Portlick Scout Campsite near Westmeath. The event is taking place over the weekend, and there are over 400 scouts that will be there. Assisting in a big way is the local radio club, Shannon Basin Radio Club. There are 6 stations on the air, including HF operation on the 80 meters to 10 meters bands using SSB, CW and digital modes. Also UHF and VHF simplex plus repeater operations via EI2SBR will be supported. There will also be several activities including orienteering, flag hunts and obstacle course navigation. Radio Scouting Ireland will be operating EI10 Joda. Please listen out for them and support them in any way you can. For VK1 WIA National News, I am Alan, VK2COD in Sydney. Now back to you, Cole.
Thanks, Alan, and that wraps up the segment for this week. I'll catch you again next week. I'm Cole, VK3GTV.
This is VK1 WIA. All points of contacts from today's news stories are to be found in print when you read the web editions www.wia.org.au.
2024, it's a date, VK3, May 11, Moorabbin District Amateur Radio Club's Hamfest, Kingston City Hall. VK, right across VK, National Volunteer Week, Monday 20, Sunday 26 of May. In VK2, June 8 and 9, Oxley Region Amateur Radio Club Field Day. And in VK5, the Australian Fox Hunting Championships, Mount Gambier, also 8 and 9 of June. In VK3, it's the Bendigo Amateur Radio and Electronics Club Radio Fest, August 18. VK4, Gold Coast Hamfest, October 13 at Nerang Country Paradise, Parklands, 231 Beaudesert Nerang Road, Nerang. VK5 Amateur Radio Experimenters Group Radio and Electronics Sale, Saturday 26 of October, 10 a.m, David Roche Park, Kilbourne. Tasmanian Ham Conference, November 2 and 3 in Hobart. And Spark Rosebud Radio Fest, November 17, Eastbourne Primary School, Allambie Avenue, Rosebud in VK3. So now until next we meet, I'm Graham, VK4BB. Take a leaf out of my book and walk softly.
This has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5 BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
Hello there, this is VK3OTN, the official station of the Radio Amateur Oldtimers Club of Australia, with the monthly news broadcast for members and friends of the club for May 2024. This month, instead of the usual broadcast, we will offer an historical broadcast from years past. The usual news and information will be broadcast next month. I'm Andrew, the VK3 Charlie Alpha Hotel. I have broadcast files going back as far as 2001. Many of the older files aren't the greatest as far as technical quality goes, archived in either real audio or Windows Media Audio format. These produced a smaller file size back in the days when the leading edge technology was dial-up internet. Remember that? This month we have an original broadcast from April 2002. Details on when to hear these news and information broadcasts are available at the club website www.raotc.org.au. The VK3OTN is available on a wide range of radio platforms, HF, VHF and UHF, 2 metre repeaters, amateur television, DMR, that is digital mobile radio, and D-Star. These news broadcasts are available for download for up to 6 months, just in case you miss the original news broadcast from the RAOTC website. If you'd like to contact the club, then why not send us an email? raotc@raotc.org.au. I hope you enjoy this month's broadcast.
Hi there, this is Alan Doble on VK3AMD with associated relay stations as VK3OTN, the call sign of the Radio Amateurs Alzheimer's Club Australia. Our annual general meeting was held on Tuesday, March the 12th with an attendance of 60 members and friends. Your committee was re-elected with the exception of John Fulliger, VK3AVY, who resigned for family reasons. The meeting elected Bruce Baffles, VK3UV, to fill the vacancy. John Fulliger has given many years of service as a committee member, including a term as our president. Fortunately, John is able and willing to continue to beam our monthly broadcast of VK4 on 20 metres. John's listening right now, so thank you, John, for your years of work with us. The committee will meet next Thursday when office bearers will be decided, and hopefully we'll be in a position to move forward in the process of incorporation. At our previous committee meeting, it was decided that subscriptions would be held at the current $8 per year and be reviewed after that. Joining fee will go from the long-standing $2.50 to $5 effective from now. This is VK3OTN. We regret the delay in the production of the March issue of OTN, which has been in the hands of the printer, and the latest news is that I will pick up the finished magazines from the printer this afternoon. I know it's a holiday Monday, but that's the deal, and so it should be in the post by the end of the week. Sorry about the delay. New members, please join me in welcoming to membership full member Colin Darrell, and he qualifies for membership, although he's not holding a current call sign. Number 1244. Number 1245, full member Colin Duckworth, VK3AIC. 1246, associate member Trevor Pittman, VK3KEG. 1247, associate member Philip Basanish, VK6SO. 1248, associate member Tony Morris, VK3CTM. 1249, full member Vic Punch, VK3CKD. 1250, full member Noel Lawrence, VK3ACU. This info of members is very gratifying, and I hope some of them will identify themselves in the callback sessions. And it's now with regret that I report the passing from us of Jeff Bristow, VK2UB, who was number VK467, and Gordon Reglis, VK5GR, a long-time member, who was number VK322. We pause now for a few moments in memory of these past friends. This is VK3OTN. In South Australia, the RAAF Signals and Radar Association of South Australia advised that the annual Anzac Day reunion will be held on Thursday, the 18th of April. It's coming up fast. Thursday, the 18th of April, at 12 noon for 12:30 p.m. And they suggest you bring your seniors card. The venue, the Marion Hotel, and Marion Road, Mitchell Park. RSVP by the 13th of this month to one of the following committee members: President Jack Townsend, phone 829-52209, or Secretary Ray Dean, phone 827-15401, I should say, or Assistant Secretary Ron Coate, phone 8296-6681. The public transport bus number 243 at stop 24 will get you there. That's all from Ray Dean, VK5RK. This is VK3OTN. In West Australia, the usual luncheon will be held next Tuesday, April the 9th. And we hope to continue the successful retransmission of today's broadcast on the repeater sites and on 40 metres. And thanks to the work and skill of the operators involved in this operation. This is VK3OTN. Many members will be interested in this next item and hopefully will take part in the event described, which will take place from Friday next April the 5th to Monday, April the 8th. It is being organised by the Radio Amateurs Old-Timers Association in England to commemorate the inauguration of the beam wireless service between England and Australia. The media notice we have received reads as follows. Special event in connection with the old Marconi shortwave beam station at Tetney, Lincolnshire. Commemoration of the inauguration of the Post Office Empire Radio shortwave beam service to Australia by the Australian Prime Minister on the 8th of April 1927. At 0600 hours GMT on the 8th of April 1927, the Prime Minister of Australia, Mr. S.M. Bruce, inaugurated the very first radio service to Australia from anywhere in the world. This was, at the time, a revolution in telecommunications, at least comparable with satellite communications today. Prior to this, communication with Australia, even as late as 1927, was possible only by means of slow and expensive undersea cable telegraphs. The transmitter in this country, that's England, was located just north of the village of Tetney, about 5 miles south of Grimsby, using the call sign GBH. The transmitter in Australia was located near the town of Milan, about 50 miles northwest of Melbourne, and in Victoria, and its call sign was BIZ. The frequency used for this revolutionary service from Lincolnshire was 11.58 megahertz, an astonishingly high frequency 75 years ago. The feasibility of this service was strongly questioned by telecommunications experts of the day. It proved to be a fantastic success. A corresponding station for communication with Canada and South Africa was opened at Lanabit near Bodmin and Cornwall. However, one-op communication with Australia was an amazing achievement for the time and could be considered the zenith of Marconi's wireless telegraph company's achievements, really overshadowing in technical competence, innovation and indeed boldness the first transatlantic transmission 26 years previously. Between the 5th and 8th of April 2002, the Radio Amateurs Old-Timers Association is sponsoring a special event amateur radio station operating from the site of the old Australian transmitter at Tetney using the special call sign GB75GBH. I'll repeat that, GB75GBH. Various shortwave frequencies will be used to contact amateur radio stations worldwide using both speech and Morse code. However, it's hoped to make contact specifically with amateur radio stations near Melbourne on the anniversary time and date. Just hold on a moment. Here in Melbourne, we have a special interest in this event because it was the late Max Howden, VK3BQ, who made the first ever shortwave two-way contact between Australia and England on November the 14th, 1924, when he worked known as Simmons G2OD on 85 metres using 85 watts. Max was a founding member of this club and served on its first committee for some time. The date and time is being arranged for your president to exchange greetings between RA2C Australia and Dr. Ken Jones, G3RNN, the president of the association in England. We'll be using our call sign VK3OTN on 20 metres through the station of Ron Fisher, VK3OM. I hope many of our members will work GB75GBH on one or more of the frequencies between April the 5th and the 8th. And it's all in a few days' time. This is VK3AMD and VK3OTN, associated relay stations. I've recently come across some documentation about an interesting family of VK3 amateurs located on a farm at Cullawatta in Western Victoria in the 1930s. Mrs. Hutchins, VK3HL, was the mother of Marjorie Hutchins, VK3HQ, and Alan Hutchins, VK3HL. The family story, which was published in the Alara page of AR magazine in 1980, was written by Marjorie, who had by then become Mrs. Marjorie Williamson. The article contains 2 photos of groups of the 1932 handfest mentioned in the story. The call signs but not the names are listed under the photos, which were taken at Kallawatta and Glenorchy. I myself appear in the Glenorchy photo with my then call sign of VK3ZM. Now this is the story as written by Marjorie. We lived on a property at Kallawatta, 18 miles north of Stawell in the Wimmera district, where farming and grazing produced wheat and wool from merino sheep. My brother Alan's interest in amateur radio went back to the early 1920s when he experimented with a spark coil transmitter. His call sign was VK3HL, was 3HL. Years later to become VK3HL. Great was the excitement when music and speech were heard distinctly from station KGO in Oakland, California, a distance of about 6,000 miles. In 1925, a musical and vocal program from Durban was heard and confirmed, and this made the daily papers. Alan obtained his WAC certificate in 1928. Alan VK3HL and Ivan VK3RH, who lived a few miles away, were involved in the early application of radio to aircraft ground control in the East-West Air Race in 1929, and they also saw the possibilities of radio help for fire brigades about 1936, and used to experiment with portable radio transmitters and receivers in their cars. Always backed up by his wife Lilla, Alan continued his radio interests, including DX contacts, and in 1959 they went on a trip overseas, meeting many amateurs personally, including W2CC, Al Scarlett, and his wife Ethel, who kept in touch with our family members for many years. My mother became caught up in the interest of amateur radio through helping Alan, and became the first licensed radio operator to transmit in Victoria. Her call sign was VK3HM. I can remember her with a soldering iron in her hand, building her own shortwave receiver and transmitter. These were shown at an amateur radio exhibition in Melbourne in 1930. Her shack was next to our lounge room, and she would take every opportunity between household duties and cooking meals to work VX as well as local amateurs. Relating how she obtained her WAC certificate, she said that on Christmas Eve 1929 she'd worked at least one station in each continent. It still remained England, and sitting well into the night, she eventually established contact with an English amateur who congratulated her on her achievement. The really pleasing thing to her was that she was able to exchange the season's greetings with somebody in the homeland, as it was then called, and that was listed in the Listener in September 1930. The electricity supply was from a 32-volt DC house lighting outfit which supplied power for the households on the farm. In our shacks we used a 32-volt to 500-volt dynamotor with suitable filters. The transmitter was a 3-stage crystal control coupled to a horizontal Zeppelin antenna about 50 feet high. VK3HM worked mainly on the 80, 40 or 20 metre bands. I thought 2 amateurs in one family were enough, until one day Mother said, "Come and listen to this music from an American station." I donned the earphones and afterwards fiddled the dials and felt quite irritated that I couldn't understand the CW signals. That decided me to learn the Morse code, followed later by the theory. With a lot of help and advice, in 1932 I obtained my AOCP and the call sign VK3HQ. I shared the rig of VK3HM and used to chase DX at all hours, and found it a fascinating hobby which led to many friendships and pen friends. QSL cards and photos were exchanged in various parts of the globe. I eventually got my WAC working South America on 10 metres on a little Hartley rig. Some of the old-timers may remember a hand test at Brent Avon in Kallawatta in 1933, when every bed, including makeshift ones, were crammed into any space available, and several of the amateurs stayed with Ivan VK3RH and his wife Iris, who lived a few miles away. In 1939, our radio equipment was sealed under government orders until the end of World War II in 1945. During this time, we were all shocked by Mother's sudden death in December 1943 at the age of 66. VK3HL continued his amateur radio activities and regular skids right up to the time of his death in 1973. During the war, I was in the RAAF nursing service in Japan and married Clive there in 1947 and returned to Victoria in 1949. Though I have never set up another amateur radio station, the interest has always been there, and I think it's wonderful that we now have the ALARA, that's the Ladies Association, with so many members and such an enthusiastic committee. Wish everyone good luck and 73 in the future. Now, this article was first published in the Alara page of the AR magazine in 1980, and it's a bit of interesting history. And I was certainly at that convention. That's where I learned from Ivan Otter, 3RH, that water divining really does work, and I'm a cynic. This is VK3AMD, is VK3OTN from the Radio Old Timers Club. In last month's broadcast, Ron Fisher, VK3OM, reviewed an interesting article about HF propagation published in the November 2001 edition of Redcom, the journal of the RSGB. It included a reference to the caudal hop mode of propagation as to how the caudal hop mode of propagation was identified. I had an interesting experience with this mode about which I knew nothing some years ago, and not long after we were granted use of the 10 megahertz band. My dipole antenna is 132 feet long with 300 ohm open wire feeders to an ATU and thence to the IC751. I'd often heard an operator in Sydney working a friend in England on sideband on 10 megs at about 5 or 6 p.m. One day I decided to try and contact these stations for the first ever use of this band. Both operators had acknowledged my signal. The English station said my signals were very weak and asked me to describe my antenna system. He then asked if I could join the ends of the 300 ohm feeders together and tune up as a top-loaded vertical, which I could and did. My signals into England were now more than doubled in strength. This was the first time I had heard the words caudal hop, which the Englishman said was the mode we were operating in. Interestingly, the vertical section of the feeder was not very long as they sloped from the vertical, then through an open window and diagonally across the shack. After this experience, I rerouted the feeders to get a vertical drop of about 25 feet to about a foot above the ground, then under the floor and up behind the operating bench of the AGU. This arrangement of the antenna made a very big difference to the performance on low power 160 meters AM, as well as what it did for me on 10 megs. This is VK3OTN. And we have a note here from Keith Sherlock, VK2WQ. He says the information contained in the article was all gleaned from two books, The Big Ship by Hugh Evelyn in London and The Great Iron Ship by James Dugan. Both books make for very interesting reading but are not readily available. In my case, both had to be borrowed from major libraries by the Lithgow Library, although the local library is quite well stocked with most requirements. And this is what Keith has written. The Great Iron Ship. For the simple reason that at least one of my forebears had served on the ship as an engineer, I've long maintained an interest in the Great Eastern, which at its launch in 1858 was by a very large margin the largest ship in the world. Largely the brainchild of Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who, with his engineer father, had pioneered the first tunnel under the Thames, along with other major engineering achievements, the Great Eastern offered some remarkable statistics for the time. She was 693 feet long, used 58-foot paddle wheels and a 24-foot screw, as well as sails, which probably made her the largest sailing ship the world has ever seen. Originally built for the Great Britain to Australia trade, the ship was not used in that direction, but in competition with other shipping lines on the Atlantic service. Due to accidents and some natural disasters, the Great Eastern was rated the loser as a passenger liner. In 1865, the ship was refitted for laying cables across the Atlantic, and under the captaincy of Robert Halpin, who was one of its captains, 26,000 miles of deep water cable were laid. On the first Atlantic run, a cable broke and was lost at a place known as Telegraph Ridge. As this represented the operational edge of a $3 million investment, every effort was made to recover the cable. Sam Canning, who had recovered a number of cables at lesser depths, went to work with a 5-hook grapnel and 5 miles of wire rope. The cable consisted of 7 strands of twisted copper wire with a soft rubber coating, then wrapped in 8 thicknesses of a rubber compound, covered by 10 charcoal iron wires spun in a tarred manila yarn. The whole was a little over an inch thick. The whole thing was a little over an inch thick. At latitude 51, 24 minutes, longitude 38 degrees, 59 minutes, latitude, the grappling process went on for 8 days. Twice they believed they took the cable, but on each occasion the line broke. When all the line material available on board had been used, a marker buoy was set and the Great Eastern returned to port. In 1866, the second expedition returned to the marker buoy and grappled 30 times before recovering the cable at a depth of nearly 3 miles. The scene was described by Cyrus Field as, quote, "One of the most interesting scenes I've ever witnessed was the moment when, after the cable had been recovered, it was brought to the electrician's room to see whether it was alive or dead. Never shall I forget that eventful moment when, in answer to our question to Valencia, in an instant came back those memorable letters, OK. I went to my kitten and locked the door. I could no longer restrain my tears," unquote. Professor Thompson, who was later known as Lord Kelvin, was on board during the Atlantic cable laying venture. The cable was designed according to his principles and his invention, the mirror and galvanometer, and this was essential in laying the cable. His reasoning as to why a faulty cable sometimes righted itself is interesting, and that's described as, when the current is sent through a wire from one pole, it produces an electromechanical reaction on the wire, and at the place of injury, it leads to a deposit of salt of copper in the breach and impedes the escape of electricity. When the opposite currents return, the deposit reduced and hydrogen gas is formed, a globule of which may rest in the chink and by its non-conductive power restore the insulation of the cable for a time. I don't understand that, frankly, but that's what the book says. The Great Eastern, which outweighed the combined tonnage of the 197 English ships which fought the Spanish Armada, was broken up during 1988. Interesting story. Thank you for that. The next item was contributed to AR magazine a few years ago by a well-known character who may not still be with us. That was Pansy Parsons, VK5VS, and this appeared in AR. It's entitled Women and Radio, an open book to me. The other night, my wife brought a couple of the visitors into my shack, and after the usual showing off on my part, said, "Pansy is so clever at radio, it holds no secrets from him." The visitors, looking suitably impressed, were shown out shortly after this. As I was making my way toward the kitchen, I was stopped short in my tracks by hearing my 9-year-old daughter say, "Mummy, is Daddy really as clever at radio as you say he is all the time?" She said, "Of course not. He just likes to think he is. And he likes to think that we think he is." I was going to speak up then, but my wife went on before I could open my mouth. "It's a kind of game, Audrey. You play it yourself when you grow up. All men are the same. You have to flatter them. They like to think they're big and strong and clever and hard-working and that we could not get along without them." Audrey was apparently puzzled by this revelation and finally said, "Don't you love Daddy?" He said, "Of course I love him. That's why I let him break his fingernails on suitcases, because it makes him happy to think that he's strong and clever and can open suitcases. Well, I'm too dumb to buy a railway ticket without help and can't get the top off a tube of toothpaste." After a while, she said, with what sounded like a sob in her voice, "I'll get myself on a cold night to get up and get a glass of water." I silently retired to my shack so they would not know that I'd been eavesdropping, and on this blood-curdling revelation, and also because I wanted to see how long before Audrey would try and put this philosophy into action. Then I'd whack it out of them with a hairbrush. My wife was too far gone down the path of deception to be worth the trouble, but Audrey can still be saved. The try-on by Audrey when it came was not what I expected. Later in the evening, she wandered into my shack and stood by my chair while I was tuning up and down the band. I thought, here it comes. First the build-up, then the request for the increased allowance, and finally the hairbrush. She said, Daddy, you know what? No, what? Mummy thinks you're a dillpot. What makes you say that? She said so. She said you aren't as smart as you think you are. And when was all this? Today. She said that all men are dumb, and if you oil them right, you can make them do practically anything for you. Well, what do you think? I said. Her essential honesty was clearly coming to the fore. I didn't have to worry about her, not Audrey. I felt a great surge of affection from my daughter. She did. I don't think you're a dillpot. You wouldn't fall for that kind of business. Maybe other men would, but not my daddy. No, sir, I'll bet. She slid her arm around my neck. Nobody's as clever as you. Nobody can make kites as good as you can. She climbed into my lap. Or tell such good stories. She put her head under my chin. Or work the DX stations like you do. She put both arms around my neck and squeezed tight. I like you. I'll bet you're the smartest man in the whole world. I don't care what anybody says. I wanted that 807 rather badly. But 2 and 6 a week's hardly a decent allowance for a 9-year-old girl, after all. So right then and there, I raised her allowance to $5 bob. Thought you'd like that. This is VK3AMD, is VK3OTN, the Radio Amateur Old Timers Club. And that happy note, I'll leave it till next month. We now conclude our transmission. Hope you found it interesting. We will be on the air again on Monday, May the 6th and Monday, June the 3rd at the same times and frequencies as today. Please, let's hear from you during the callback sessions on whatever frequency you listened on. Thank you for listening, and 73.
You have been listening to VK3OTN. VK3OTN is the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club, Australia. This concludes this month's news and information bulletin. The next IOTC news and information broadcast will take place on the first Monday of next month, on the same frequencies and at the same times as today, with the exception of January. Thanks for being with us, and we hope you will join in the callbacks, where callbacks are taken. 73 everyone.